This has not been a good month for free speech. The Babylon Bee is censored on Twitter for calling Admiral Rachel Levine a man, which she is. The Christian Post, which is among the largest Christian journalism platforms in America, also censored for the same. Well, thankfully, both of these platforms are boldly standing for truth and refusing to delete the tweets despite any limitations that Twitter has placed on their accounts. The Babylon Bee and the Christian Post are among a growing list of influencers who are being censored simply for speaking truth, basic truths, and not even in a hateful way. Now, this has not been a good month for free speech at all. Granted, the past decade hasn't been good for free speech either. And sadly, as is evidenced by Yale law students earlier this month, these are the American litigators of tomorrow, and they are giving us no reason to be optimistic about free speech. Andrew Klavan, host of the Andrew Klavan Show, The Daily Wire. It's great to have you with us.
It's nice to be here.
I
Thanks.
snagged up Andrew. I saw that he was in the studio, and I'm like, I'm not leaving. We got to get him. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That's a pleasure.
So Yale Law School, we send alumni to the Supreme Court. We send alumni from Yale Law to the most prestigious and influential offices in the land. And what we saw was really embarrassing for a student. It was more embarrassing for a law student and from Yale.
Yeah.
And Yale has not taken, at this point, and it's been a couple of weeks, they have not taken any action against the students other than what they're calling conversations.
Right.
What does this say? What does it say about the litigation of tomorrow, and what does it say about any hope of free speech in the generations to come?
It's incredibly dangerous. I mean, obviously, free speech is the first principle of freedom. If you can't speak your mind, if you can't have your ideas out there. And of course, you don't have to censor people when you're telling the truth. You have to censor people when they're telling the truth. I mean, every authoritarian regime knows this, right? There's only two kinds of speech. There's free speech and there's speech controlled by the powerful, right? Because if you're shouting people down, if you're cutting people off, you have the power to do that. And so it's always the little guy, the guy who's in the minority, who's going to be silenced. It's also indicative of a false idea of the world that is being protected through silence. So in other words, if what you're saying is wrong, it's brittle. It shatters at the sound of truth. If you're not telling the truth and somebody points it out, you get caught. If you're telling the truth, you can stand there forever and you don't have to do anything but speak that truth because everybody is ultimately going to know. So it means that we're being sold a bill of goods. And it means that these kids have been sold a bill of goods. And I think that bill of goods is leftism. Now, there's plenty wrong with the right, obviously, but leftism is a false philosophy. It has failed everywhere it's been tried. It has led to slavery everywhere it's been tried. And the reason is it's built around a fantasy, which is the fantasy that there is some wonderful entity called the benevolent state. That doesn't exist. The only reason the state seems benevolent is because we've limited enough that people are not getting enough power to go insane, because power drives people nuts. Once you start to give the state more and more power, you get more and more crazy. And we've seen that during COVID. We've seen it during the Chinese virus, that suddenly people thought, oh, well, we can shut things down. We can keep you from going to church, but allow you to go to the liquor store. We can tell you what to do, where to go, wear a mask on your face. Let's do that. We're going to do that whether it helps or not, whether it changes the numbers or not. So it means it is indicative of the fact that these kids believe something that is false, and they think that they can enforce that falseness by changing the language that we speak and changing the people who want to speak the truth.
I was actually a little bit optimistic during COVID. I thought people were going to see how ridiculous things could get and realize, okay, the boiling frog actually makes sense. This method actually makes sense. Specifically, the case where they said, I think this was out of Nevada and New York and maybe a couple other states, probably California, where I'm from, ashamed to say, where a church can have 50 people, but a bar, casino, business can have 50%. So if you have, your business that holds 1,000 and your church that holds 1,000, the business can have 500, but the church can only have 50. Now, thankfully, the courts were in our favor there. But the fact that it even got to the Supreme Court, the fact that ridiculous, what's the word they always use, discriminatory law, even makes it to the court, even passes state legislatures or goes to the governor's office, it's very concerning. And I thought that alone would make people go, okay, maybe Orwell, wasn't too far off.
I was really disappointed in the church during this period. I mean, with the exception of John MacArthur in California, the churches just shut right down. The state told them to close, they closed. The whole story of the gospel is you tell the truth even when they come for you. You tell the truth even when they put the nails in you. That's what you do. You stand for the truth. And instead, what we have is a church that wants to be nice. It wants to make the world a better place. Jesus never said the world was going to become a better place, rather the opposite, And so the idea that the churches copped out was a sign. You're right. You're absolutely right about this. It was a sign that we have to regroup and start to bring the belief in truth and the belief in godly truth and the belief that God supports the truth and is the truth. We have to bring that back through another venue besides the church, because the churches have abandoned us.
Yeah. No, John MacArthur, we went out there and did a video with him just to kind of say, you know what? It was entertaining. It was good to be with him. It was good information for us. It was good to be inspired by him. But also, we wanted to give a platform for other pastors to look at. We wanted to give MacArthur a platform to say, he's standing for truth. Canada is standing for truth. Canada came out of the woodwork and was like showing so much boldness. Their pastors, some of them from Polish descent, they know. That's right. What this comes from, and where it leads to. And so, silver lining amongst it all. There really was. Going back to the Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
We love the Babylon Bee.
Yeah,
we love the satire.
They're hilarious. Yeah.
And they speak, and now I'm not a lawyer, but I took a law class in college, so I know everything. And I remember satire gets a pass. Typically with laws, media laws, satire gets a pass. But they don't get a pass. They're satire. They're talking about a man being a man, which is basic truth. But even from a leftist perspective, you got to give satire that leeway. Why aren't we getting it? And what does that say?
Well, first of all, the terrible thing about this, there's several issues about this. They were thrown off for making fun of Rachel Levine, who is a man who wears pearls. He's like a Monty Python routine at this point. So it's like, that's the first thing. They're speaking of basic truth, and they were silenced, and that tells us that we've really strayed from the truth. But it's also these platforms, these powerful, powerful communication entities have been given by government the right to censor speech without being sued. So in other words, they have the power of a publisher, but the freedom of a platform. And, the phone company can't do this. If they don't like what I'm saying, they can't cut off my conversation with you. If I'm not committing a crime, they can't cut off my conversation with you. These people should not be allowed to either. And I am really upset with the right about this, because the right says, well, they're private companies. That doesn't matter. Your rights come from God. Your rights are endowed in you by your Creator. Says so right there on the piece of paper, right? It is part of the founding of this country. The First Amendment is there to protect those rights from the government, but the government is instituted to protect those rights from everything else. So the government should be stopping Twitter, stopping Facebook, stopping YouTube from canceling speech. They should not have that power. And it drives me nuts that conservatives are supporting it because they think they're supporting business. This is a business. No, our free speech should remain unthreatened from every side. And the government is there to make sure that happens. And the First Amendment is there to make sure the government doesn't do it. So there's several issues here. I mean, one is that the basic truth is being outlawed. The simple truth that men are men and women are women is being outlawed, which I think is a disaster for women. I think it is an absolute attack on women and on the essentiality of women. But also that these powerful multinational entities are being given the power to undermine this basic right. And so it really is dangerous and really needs my feeling is we should tar and feather these guys. And then when the right comes and says, well, they're private entities, we say, gee, sorry, we already tarred and feathered them and threw them into the Potomac. So it's too late, because I think this is essential that we have to defend this right from all sides. Yeah.
2 and 2 is 4, no matter who says otherwise.
Yeah.
Let's say 5 or 6, no matter where the needle points, right? Yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's been appointed to the Supreme Court to take over for retiring Justice Breyer, was asked a very simple question by Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. What is a woman? Yeah. And I know Marsha Blackburn well enough to know that she knew what she was doing. Well, good for her. Good for her for asking a question that she knew she was going to get a zingy answer on, or a zingy clip from. I mean, it was a very basic answer. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. And when I first saw the clip, I thought, okay, maybe this was out of context. Someone's just kind of twisting stuff, whatever. So I went and listened to the whole thing, and it was very much in context. You were picked for this position because you're a woman.
Yes, well, that's the first thing. That was my first reaction.
Yeah, like how can you not define a woman if you in fact were appointed here because you're a woman? I mean, what is black? I can't give that answer. I'm not an ophthalmologist. I can't talk about vision. I'm not a biologist. Like, what are you going to say? And she's going to be sitting on the highest court in the land, no doubt. She's going to get confirmed, and she's going to be sitting on the highest court in the land without being able. She didn't say I don't want to say. She said, I can't say.
Because I'm not a biologist. It takes a biology degree. I need to have a higher degree in biology in order to distinguish a male from a female. This is an actual philosophical point on the left that they have combined Marx and Freud and are launching an attack on our freedoms because they really believe we're too foolish to cling to our freedoms when they could bring us paradise through Marxism. That is what the left believes. They believe that we have a false consciousness that makes us happy to work and to strive and to make our lives better when we could just have Marxism and everything would be great. And in order to destroy that false consciousness, they have to destroy the things that we love, because these are part of our false consciousness. And one of the things we love is, we love men and women coming together. That is the essential act of the human body, is to recreate, right? So that and recreate more life. And we love our families, and we love men and women being in love with each other. This is a target that they have said, that they have developed. Carl Trueman wrote a wonderful book about this, The Triumph of the Self, I think it's called. And he talks about how the left developed this attempt to destroy what they think is our false consciousness, our love of freedom, our love of business, our love of trade, and our love of one another. You know, it's a funny thing. You know, they put these things as a problem, but for most of us, the love between a man and a woman is one of the consolations of tragic life. You know, life is very difficult, but to have the love of a woman, if you're a man, to have the love of a man, if you're a woman, is one of the things that we think, oh, this is great. You know, this is the good part. This is the good part of life. And they think that that's a falsehood, and they want to destroy it, and they do it in the name of tolerance. Now, here's the funny thing. I'm an artist. I've lived my life in the arts. Everybody I know is an eccentric, nuts, crazy, sexually weird. You know, I am a very libertarian person in the sense, not in the sense that I think that everything is right, but in the sense that I leave people alone and I don't lose any sleep about what other people are doing. But this is not the same thing. They are using tolerance. They are using the usual kind of easygoing American live and let live attitude to smuggle in genuine evil. And you know it's evil because they've gone after the children. And when you go after the children, really, this is what I mean when I say that they're hiding one thing in another. We don't have to hate other people. We don't have to condemn other people. We don't have to preach, you know, let people live their lives. We do have to protect children and be the basic structures of human life. And those basic structures involve men and women coming together and creating more life, but they also involve, in a free society, they involve the family. The family is the bulwark of freedom because it is where you learn how to govern yourself. And it's where you learn from people that you love that you can govern yourself and you don't have to have everything you want. And sometimes you get punished for doing the wrong thing. And then you can be free because you're self-disciplined. Once you lose that, you don't have that anymore. You don't have that discipline anymore. And we've seen that. They've been working on this through feminism, through what they call tolerance. But none of those things is what they're really selling. They're not really doing anything for women. They're hurting women, right? So it's not feminism as I understand it, which gives women rights. It's not tolerance that says if you don't let us teach your children that they're the wrong sex, you're doing something wrong. That's not tolerance. That's wickedness. You know, it's just, so they're using good things that I believe in. I believe in being tolerant. I believe in, you know, letting people alone and letting people live their lives. They're using good things to disguise an assault on the family because they know the family is a bulwark of freedom, and freedom is their ultimate target.
I want to read a tweet.
All right.
This is really good. Now, I'm a G.K. Chesterton, see all the sides, be charitable. You know, the purpose of an open mind, similar to the mouth, is to close it on something solid. Everyone's having a conversation. I'm not the zingy guy, but this was a zingy tweet, and I got to read it. She says, a fascinating turn of events when we've gone to #BelieveAllWomen to what is this word you speak of? What is this word you speak of? And, you know, that's zingy, but it's not a zingy where you read it and you're like, okay, it didn't really include other information. Right. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very, very fundamental to what we saw in the court yesterday.
Well, this is the point my Daily Wire colleague Matt Walsh keeps making, is he keeps saying somebody has to answer the question, what is a woman? And the reason that that's such a good point is because this is all about language. This is all about the meaning of words. It is obviously obvious that a man is not going to become a woman. It's obvious that men and women are not going to become the same thing. It's obvious that this is an essential fact of human life, that there are men and women and they are different. But what they really want is they want the word to mean whatever they say it means. So when a woman is being bothered at work by a guy who wants to pinch her backside, then she's a woman and then he's doing a terrible thing and men are terrible. But when that guy puts on a dress and wants to follow her into the bathroom, then the word means something different. So it's really all about the word meaning what they say it means at the time that they say it means it. And that's the ultimate power, as we learned from 1984. You know, remember, you said it yourself. You said 2 and 2 is 4, but in 1984 they say 2 and 2 is whatever the party says it is, and that's really what we're arguing about. We are arguing about the meaning of words, and And this is an important thing. People don't think about it because we talk so easily, and the language does change and it does mutate. But it doesn't matter. But it doesn't change because you demand it to change. It doesn't change because you want to take control over meaning. And I think this is dangerous stuff. I'm kind of optimistic because a lot of times in American life, common sense reasserts itself. In some ways, I'm more afraid that the right will become so reactionary that we become hateful in our own ways. I think what we have to do is stand not for the opposite of what they say, but stand for truth. We have to stand for the truth. And I think people will stand with you if you do that.
My colleague, William Wolf, had a really good tweet the other day. He said, you know what? When it comes to Leah Thomas, the swimmer, right? Definitely a dude. Wants to be a woman. He said, if I saw him, I would go up, I'd put my arm around him and be like, dude, just stop. Let's talk. Let's really. And his approach, I can't quote him, but William's approach was so fair. It was like, this guy is a product of culture. He has been, I don't know what happened in his life, but somewhere along the lines, he has been completely distorted into thinking that he can be whatever he wants. And I mean, I do blame him, but I blame the people who went before him. I blame the people who conditioned him to think that this is okay. I blame the people who figuratively said to him, you can beat women in these sports. You can do this and it's okay. And I mean, the guy's broken. We're all broken. But I mean, Leah Thomas is just a perfect example. And I hope this narrative doesn't go away for a very long time, that Leah Thomas is a product of a culture. And you were criticizing the right, and I'm going to join you with that. There's been some squishiness. But there's also been some hate. It's like, where do you find that balance? William's approach was perfect. I'm going to hold to truth. I'm not going to be a bad word about it, but I'm going to hold the truth. I'm going to show this guy love because he was shown either no love or wrong kind of love growing up. He was shown hate, in my opinion.
Well, one of the great tensions in American life and in free life in general is the tension between the individual and the community, right? And what the left does is they take every exception to the rule and make it a rule. And that's a trick that basically it's Nietzsche, moved into the Marxism. The idea that we have to take every exception into account. We have to treat every exception with kindness. There's no question about that. We have to love one another even when people go out there. And some people who are exceptions in good ways and positive ways. But we have to have a society, and a society works in certain ways, and we have a right to that society. We have a right to not have people sleeping on our streets. We have a right to people, women being able to compete in sports with one another. We have a right to bathrooms where our privacy is concerned. You do not have the right to erase that because a guy says he's a girl. And this is the idea that they're going to silence us enough that lies become the truth. They're going to silence us enough where they take control of the language and everything changes, and we have to say no. As a society, as a group, we believe in certain things, and we understand. We can be tolerant of the guy outside that group, but he lives in our house. As an artist, one of the things I've always been aware of, even as a little kid, is I live in the house of people who aren't artists, because artists are the last thing you have. Right? The first guy is not the guy who tells the story. The first guy is the guy who fights the war that you tell the story about. Right? I live in the house of the military. I live in the house of the garbage man. I live in the house of the people, the homemakers. I'm more important than almost anybody. I live in their house because they make the world, and I try to entertain them and hopefully enlighten them by my work. I don't expect them to be so, forgiving toward me that they rewrite their society for me. I expect them to let me do my crazy thing, to be the eccentric artist that I am, and leave me alone, but not to cater to me where they change the whole society. And this is what I think we have to understand. We can love one another, even in our eccentricities, but we don't have to change the norms of human life to accommodate every single person.
Andrew Klavan, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. One last question. So for the Christians who are young right now, what is your advice for young Christians who aspire to be in politics or somehow in the judicial system? Well, I always tell young people the same thing, which is do right and fear nothing. I think that young people have been trained to fear. We saw this in the virus lockdowns. We saw it in the way that people are being told if they speak, their lives will be canceled. They have to find their courage. They have to be dedicated to truth and to speak the truth. And the other thing I would say is this, as I said before, politics, Jesus never said the world's going to be a better place. Politics is a way of letting people be free. And some of those people are going to do wrong, and some of those people are going to fail, and some of those people are going to have problems. But the freedom is the thing that we're all trying to get to. And the government is there to make sure those rights
are in place. And that's it. That's it. You don't have to make the world better. Let us make the world better. Let us, each one of us, build a better world in ourselves, and that will make the world better. So trust to the people, trust to freedom, and trust to God, and don't be afraid.
All right. This was awesome. Thanks so much.
Great talking to you.
Thank you.